Oh, I guess we shouldn't talk about it. Yeah, you're right. We shouldn't fucking talk about it because I didn't bring it up, dumb fuck.
I need you to answer this question, or I want to never talk to you again.
What a Weasley little gaslighting, manipulative little bitch.
I think you're getting kicked.
This is the second conversation I had with Mr. Gaslight, and he completely refuses to engage with any arguments. This might be the most pathetic attempt I've ever seen him have, where he tries to reframe the narrative and manipulate the argument. I think that it is appropriate. I will say that I don't think it is appropriate to cede all narrative control to someone else because they come on your platform. So if we're being nitpicky here, I mean, saying that it's all narrative control might have been a little bit of a strong statement, but I quickly correct myself, and I think that it is very reasonable and non-immoral to have narrative control of your own platform. I disagree with Destiny's moderating decisions, but I don't think that's moral or abusive.
Do you think I've asked him to cede all narrative control?
I mean, sure, I guess you could focus on this. I think it's a really stupid misnomer to focus on the exact amount of narrative control that Max was asking for. Right now, my basic point was that I don't think it's immoral to keep narrative control in favor of not having someone else have it when it's on your platform. I think you've very clearly taken issue with the fact that he has all of the narrative control. Notice how I'm refocusing the conversation to what I actually wanted to talk about, which is the fact that MrGirl thinks that it's immoral for Destiny to have all narrative control on his platform. He thinks it's abusive. That's what I've come to argue is not abusive, and you think that's inherently abusive.
Do you think that there's a difference between asking someone to give you all narrative control and having a problem that they have all narrative control? You made those two statements as though they're the same, but they're pretty different.
And again, you'll see me try to refocus the conversation to what I originally wanted to talk about, which is the fact that MrGirl has no reasons for calling Destiny abusive for having all the narrative control. That inherently having all of the narrative control is not abusive. But the problem is MrGirl has no reasons for why it's abusive. He doesn't have any arguments for that. So he's going to try to focus on some weird side point. I think that the actions that he could take to cede narrative control to you...
I need you to answer this question, or I want to never talk to you again.
So that cute little thing that he just did was an attempt to make it look like the conversation is going in circles or not going anywhere. But this is an attempt to get the moderator to kick, basically. Because MrGirl's too much of a pussy to do it himself, and he doesn't have any interest in having real conversations on this stream, because he knows he's in the wrong.
Again.
Alright, go ahead.
Do you see that there's a difference? You just said these two things as though they're the same, but they're different. Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference between me wanting all narrative control and me having a problem that I have zero narrative control?
Absolutely, there's a difference.
Okay. I think my problem was the second one. I wanted some narrative control. I wanted some guarantee that even if you're going to shit on me, lie about me, misconstrue what I say, trigger your community to dogpile me, I want to be able to write subreddit posts.
Now, I want you to take note of this. I have not mentioned the subreddit. This is the first time that the subreddit has been brought up in the entire conversation, and it was MrGirl who brought it up. I talked about narrative control. This subreddit was not the only form of narrative control that MrGirl asked for.
I don't think that's asking for all narrative control. That's asking for kind of minor amount of narrative control.
Well, I don't think that's asking for all narrative control. I think that equal narrative control is you have a platform and he has a platform. I don't think you're not a small streamer. While he does have access to a larger audience, I think
it feels like you're changing the subject.
I'm bringing up exactly what I brought up in the beginning and what I wanted to talk about the whole time. My whole point of coming on and talking about that was the fact that he thinks Destiny is abusive for having all of the narrative control. I don't think there's any good reason for that. And I think that they both have a platform to speak and they both have narrative control. I don't think Destiny should cede his platform to MrGirl. And I don't think MrGirl should cede his platform to Destiny. I think them both having their own platforms where they have control of their own narrative is fine. And I think it's a far stretch for this little Weasley motherfucker to call it abusive.
It feels like you're changing the subject.
The amount of narrative control that you have? I think that because of you also have a platform, meaning that you have narrative control because you can spread whatever narrative that you want on your platform.
Do you think that me asking to not be banned from his subreddit is asking for a large amount of narrative control?
So in one sentence, he brings up the subreddit when we haven't mentioned the subreddit once. He's the one who brings it up. Then I try to refocus the topic. He accuses me of changing the subject when he changed the subject to the subreddit. And I say, no, I'm talking about the amount of narrative control that you have and how it's not abusive. And then he brings it back to the subreddit, which I never mentioned once. This is an expert attempt to gaslight the audience and in making it seem like I changed the subject when he's the one who brought up a new subject which we were never talking about. This is just another example of Max being a Weasley little scumbag. And he's trying to make it look like the conversation is going in circles, which a little bit it is, even though we are making some progress, but only because of him. But he's doing that in an attempt to get the moderator to move to the next caller.
Do you think that me asking to not be banned from his subreddit is asking for a large amount of narrative control?
No. I don't think so.
I feel like it's asking for a pretty small amount of narrative control.
But I also agreed with you on that. So.
Well, great. So then we should probably stop arguing about it if you agree with me on it.
I guess when you bring it to a topic that I never agreed to talk on, that you brought up out of the blue in the middle of a fucking conversation, yeah, I guess we shouldn't talk about it. Yeah, you're right. We shouldn't fucking talk about it because I didn't bring it up, dumb fuck. So that was a cute attempt to deflect and make it seem like I agree with you in front of the audience.
You might as well just agree with what I'm saying then. We don't have to pretend we're having an argument.
But that isn't your only contention with how much narrative control he has. You have
before you change the subject, I would just like to get this out of the way.
What a Weasley little gaslighting, manipulative little bitch. You see how he did that, right? You saw that right in front of your very eyes. He brings up the subreddit, a topic which I did not come to talk about, then accuses me of changing the subject when I don't talk about it. And then I say, yeah, I agreed with you on that. I don't know why you're bringing it up, because I didn't bring it up to talk about. Then he says, oh, well, why are we pretending to argue? Why are we arguing about this topic that I brought up? I don't know, dumb fuck. Why are we arguing about this? Why did you feel the need to deflect to this completely unrelated topic and then accuse me of changing the subject? Could it be because you have literally zero fucking conviction or arguments behind the things that you're actually saying? And maybe it's all about an optic war between you and Destiny, you Weasley little fucking liar?
Me asking to not be banned in his subreddit, which was, I think, the only thing I asked for in that final conversation. I said, I need you to not ban all my fans and not ban me and not ban Orbiters from your subreddit to prevent them from reversing dog piles or speaking up for themselves. I want this guarantee of freedom of expression for your Orbiters. If you have someone who you don't want to be able to post in your subreddit and you want to ban them, you should stop streaming with them too. You should kick them out of the orbit. But as long as you're working with someone and somebody's basically working for you, they should be able to speak out against you or about what you've said about them at any time.
First off, saying Destiny shouldn't ban people from the subreddit is a far cry from saying him doing it is abusive. Secondly, people can disagree plenty with Destiny. It happens on a stream all the time. It's about a bunch of unhinged MrGirl fans coming to the subreddit and then talking shit. I don't think he should ban them, but that's not abusive, and also, it's not the fucking topic that we came to talk about.
On your subreddit, do you think that is asking for a large amount of narrative control?
So I came in to talk about whether it was abusive for Destiny to hold all of the narrative control. He has now changed the topic to the subreddit, but also changed the subject a second time to an area where he's more comfortable because he doesn't have actual arguments for the points that I brought up, to how much narrative control asking to not be banned on the subreddit gives him. What a fucking leap and bound away from the actual topic we're talking about. What a way to completely divert. And you can tell he's used to doing this because it was an expertly crafted smokescreen. That's a good question. How much narrative control does that actually give you? Is that asking for a large amount of narrative control?
Yeah.
Because he can ban you regardless. It's morally neutral to ban people, but Max, you're saying that you disagree with why you were banned. You think that you were causing too many people to disagree with him.
Yeah. And he said, sorry, if you break TOS, obviously he should ban you. If you break the terms of his rules in the subreddit, then sure, ban people. I'm not saying I'm saying you shouldn't ban people because you don't like what they're saying. think you're getting kicked.
And then the worst moderator in the history of all moderators, no offense to him, has fallen for Max's tricks, and they're hard to detect sometimes. But that moderator kicks people because he thinks the conversation is going in circles. Realistically, the conversation wasn't moving places, despite Max's complete obstinance to actually talking about the topic that I came to talk about. But of course, because Max likes to pretend that we were changing the subject, when he was the one who changed the subject, the mod sees that the conversation is almost going in circles, and thinks that another caller will somehow help. It's a crazy coincidence that every time someone calls into Max's show, the conversations go around in fucking circles unless they agree with him. That's fucking insane to me. Who would have guessed? And if you don't believe me that Max did this intentionally, here's him very clearly saying that he knows exactly how the moderation works, and he has a good grasp on when people get pulled out.
It's starting to feel like, I don't know how Paper Scissors is making these decisions. It feels like if we get stuck on something like more than 2 times, it seems like you get the shark bites.
And MrGirl used this to his full advantage. I think he realized in the first conversation, because in the first couple lines I completely fuck-owned him, that basically he wasn't going to be able to run away from me in an argument. So he tried his absolute best to make it seem like the conversation was running in circles. And it kind of was, because he was intentionally doing that. But I think I've adequately demonstrated once again that Max is completely bad faith and has no arguments for the things he's talking about and will not be pinned down and is completely unwilling to engage.